Okay, I think we're good to start. So, hello everyone, and welcome to the webinar on how to prepare for August meeting 2018 SCORE sessions. And today we will also be covering a little bit about how to sign contracts. So to introduce myself, my name is Kate Wang, and I'm the SCORE director for the term 2017-2018. And I'm also joined by two of the RAs who can present themselves.
Okay, hello everyone. My name is Erwin Barbosa Molinas. I am the SCORE Regional Assistant for the Americas, and I'm really excited to see you there in Montreal.
Hi everyone, my name is Abdurrahman Adli, and I am the Regional Assistant for the EMR, and really looking forward to seeing you again in the AM.
Good. So, as you can see, the August meeting is coming. You're probably getting a lot of emails about a lot of different deadlines. So hopefully this webinar will help you to get a clear head of what you need to do to get ready, and also what the deadlines are and what tasks you need to do before you come to the August meeting. So just a brief description of the content that we're going to talk about today. First, we're going to give you an introduction to the SCORE sessions team, who it is composed of. We'll go through the general agenda and then the specific SCORE sessions agenda, which will also include the small working groups, the regional sessions, and then and also an introduction to the joint sessions. And then we will talk about the voting rights tasks, the most important thing almost, as well as give you some tips for the poster fair, how to sign contracts, then of course the contracts fair tips and tricks, things you need to do before our August meeting to get ready, and then things that you need to remember to bring with you. So first thing, meeting the sessions team. So of course the session team is me, Kate Wang, the SCORE director. We also have one member of the supervising board joining us. Chris is attending the August meeting. James, the SCORE general assistant. One of the two DAs, Tarek, the development assistant, will be joining us as well. And then we have our 4 RAs, Arsene, the RA for Africa, Wing, the RA for Europe, Erwin, the RA for Americas, and Adli, the RA for EMR. Unfortunately, Pam, the RA for Asia Pacific, will not be joining us for the August meeting, but we'll still make sure that the regional sessions, the SCORE and Skopje regional sessions and Asia Pacific will still be just as good. And then we have our 6 sessions team members. So we have Eugenio, the Nori of IFMC Chile, Alex, the Nori of Humsic Hungary, Matthew, who's the Nori elect from BEMSA Belgium, Tulio, the Nori of IFMC Brazil, Simi, the Nori of FASMA Romania, and Natasha, the Nori of IFMC Jordan. Now we will take a look at the general agenda. So it is quite similar to previous times, but you will notice one thing that is a little bit different, which is on day 3, we're missing the contracts fair, and that's because at this August meeting, the contracts fair will be on day 4 during our sessions time. And this time it will be a closed contracts fair, meaning that it will not be open to the public for the last hour like it normally is. And when Adli presents the SCORE sessions agenda, you will see a little bit more closely what it looks like. And then also when Erwin talks about the contracts fair, he'll give you a little bit more information about that. I also just wanted to highlight a couple of out of sessions that could be interesting for you to attend as well. So of course the regional sessions on day 1 and day 4 for that matter, will have Skopje SCORE sessions where you can focus on topics that are important for your regions. We highly encourage you to attend those. On day 2, we will have the internal exchanges only poster fair. So this is just for exchange officers, for all exchange officers, and you will just have your poster. Adli will give a little bit more information about that later. Then we also have the training sessions on day 2. So these are soft skills trainings, and the reason I still encourage you to attend them is because a lot of those soft skills still apply very nicely into your tasks and skills that you need to have in order to be a good exchange officer, which is why we also highly recommend for you to attend the training sessions as well. Then on day 3, we of course have our joint sessions, which Erwin will give you a little bit sneak peek of. Highly recommend you to attend those. Regional sessions on day 4, as I mentioned. And then the contracts fair, which will be on day 4, as I mentioned as well. So those are just the out of sessions that I recommend for you to attend. Adli, go ahead.
I'll talk to you in details about the SCORE agenda that we have prepared for you. It's a very rich and enjoyable agenda, and I'll go through the details now. So on day one, the 3rd of August, we'll start by introductions. Use a sessions team, everyone, and we'll go through the agenda and we'll put the ground rules and break the ice. Then we will split the participants into two groups, basically beginners to attend the introduction to SCORE. This is mainly for the local officers or exchange members who are first timers in SCORE sessions in a GA. It's better for them to attend the introduction to SCORE where they can learn about basics of SCORE. And for national officers and experienced participants, you will attend the SCORE updates, in which the IT will update you about the work that has been done between the March meeting and the August meeting, and give you all the details and updates that happened in the IT. Then we'll have the small working group presentations, where we'll introduce to you the small working groups. Then we will join again all participants to have a session of 1 hour for sharing is caring. Based on the feedback we collected from you after the March meeting, that you wanted more time to share your ideas and thoughts and problems and to talk between each other. So this hour will be very beneficial, that everyone will have the space and have the chance to share thoughts and ideas and problems of their animals. Then we'll have a brand new session, the Open Science, where we will have an external, and this rarely happens in SCORE. The external will be talking about open access and open science for medical students. On day two, the 4th of August, we'll start also by two parallel sessions. The Academic Quality 101, which is basically also for beginner attendees, or people who are not involved or interested into attending regulation changes proposals and doing voting. So basically not the national officers will be attending Academic Quality 101, which talks about improving and promoting the academic quality of your research exchanges and how to provide the incoming students with better learning experience and how to implement different steps of academic quality. For national officers, we'll be talking about the regulation changes proposals and doing the voting. And then we'll have the time for the supervising board candidature presentations. Then we will join again for the small groups, which we will talk about them in details later in this webinar. On day 3, 5th of August, we'll start the day by the debate of the SCORE director candidates and the LME candidates. And then we'll have a supervising board session, during which the supervising board members present, mainly Chris, will talk to you about the work of the supervising board, explain how do they work, explain the common mistakes of filling project forms, and walk you through how to fill a project form properly. And then we'll have 4 parallel trainings, the promotion of research and SCORE and how to recruit tutors, and evaluation and impact assessment in SCORE. The third one, student-led research activities. And the last one, educational activity, basic concepts in medical research. Then during the afternoon of day 1, we'll have the regional session. Yes. Which will be for 3 hours. So each participant will be attending the corresponding regional sessions of his region, of his or her region. And during those 3 hours, there will be a time of a SCORE session where they will have the chance and platform to communicate with the national officers of your region and like solve and talk about the common problems that you face. And then on the afternoon of day 3, we'll have the joint sessions that we will talk about in more details later during this webinar. Then on day 4, we'll have also the regional sessions during the daytime. And then during the afternoon, we'll have the last 30 minutes of the lunch time for the contracts fair preparations. And then we'll have the contracts fair from 2:30 to 5:30. So it's basically 3 hours. This year, as Kate mentioned earlier, that it's on day 4, not day 3, as it used to be. And it's only closed to exchange members. So as usual, you will be getting 2 passes per NMO in Scoopy and 2 passes per NMO in SCORE. And this is for the first 2 hours of the 3 hours of the contracts fair. And then in the last hour, you will be allowed passes for the extra members attending exchange sessions, but only members attending exchange sessions. So it will not be open to everyone. And this is something to keep in mind so that you don't need to bring promotional materials and extra stuff for everyone, because it will be only closed for exchange members. Then on day 5, last day of the GA, we'll start the day by some team building, and then we'll have a problem solving session for 1.5 hours, which is also a platform for everyone to share your ideas, share your problems, work on solving them, and share how you solve the same problems in different animals. Then we'll have the 6 graduation trainings of SCORE, which will be conducted by the graduating TNet trainers who attended the TNet workshop in the pre-AM. In the afternoon, we'll have the PRET and NMO presentations for NMOs to present about their the PRETs and the different activities that they have in their NMOs. And then we'll have the small working groups and AM18 outcomes to present the outcomes of the small working groups started earlier during the GA. And then we'll have the time for wrap-up, pictures, and goodbye. That's it for the SCORE agenda.
All right, so moving on, after the agenda, as you might have seen, it's time to see what are the small working groups that are most likely going to happen during the August meeting. Some of these include research exchanges for non-medical students, exchange outreach, logistically and financially, which aims at making exchanges available to students in a logistical and financial manner. We'll continue with a small working group on hitting Scopy exchanges. We will also work on a small working group with Scopy on the preclinical exchanges. Furthermore, we'll be working on how to organize the research camp locally and nationally. As you may know, this is an initiative that has been going on and that SCORE has released this term, and we are planning to see how can we organize this at lower levels, such as national or local levels. Also, a small working group on how to implement PET and UAT and educational activities. Also, how to motivate lorries. Another small working group on outgoing selection. And last but not least, we'll be having a capacity building and exchanges small working group. Thanks. Okay, so moving on to the regional sessions. As Kate mentioned before, we will not be counting on the presence of PAN for the SCORE regional sessions. However, we will be having some member of the SCORE IT or sessions team attending this regional sessions and providing the best quality sessions that you can get. So as you can see, Africa SCORE regional sessions will take place with Arsene. In the Americas, it will be with me, Erwin. In Asia Pacific, it will be defined soon. For the EMR, you will have Adley as your regional assistant working on the SCORE sessions. And for Europe, of course, you will have Wing. To have more details about the presentations and the topics to be addressed during the SCORE regional sessions, the Survival Kit will be providing all this information soon, and wait for the Survival Kit release in order to learn more about it. So for joint sessions, we are having 3 potential collaborators. As you may know, joint sessions are a great way and a great platform to share ideas and collaborate between standing committees in things that we share in common. So the 3 standing committees that we are most likely working with are going to be SCOPE, SCORE, Human Rights and Peace, and SCOF for Public Health. The topics and details of each joint session will be shared over the survival kit as well, so stay tuned.
Thank you for that, Erwin. I can also let you guys know that the survival kit will be out towards the beginning of July. So just like Erwin said, there's a lot more details in that, so make sure that you do read that when it comes out. We will also be taking questions at the end of this webinar. So if you have any questions at any point, feel free to write them in the chat and we will address them at the end of the webinar. So to one of the most important topics for this webinar, the voting rights tasks. So it is very important that every SCORE active NMO achieves their voting rights tasks because you need them to apply for any SCORE position, to sign contracts. So this means that if you do not have your voting rights, you will not be able to sign contracts at the August meeting. So this is incredibly important. And also for you to be able to vote on the SCORE sessions, on the SCORE regulation change proposals, as well as on the SB candidates. So if you want a little bit more details on the voting rights specifically, you can check out the SCORE regulations section 6.2.2. So there was an email sent out a few days ago, just under a week ago, with an overview of all of the voting rights tasks, and then we have them here again. So you will notice that there's different times for when certain tasks are open, and also when the deadline is. So the NOR report, which also includes a TINA impact assessment and the visa database collection forms, was opened yesterday on the 10th of June, and the deadline to fill in that is on the 1st of July. You do have to fill in both the TINA impact assessment and the visa database in order for it to be counted that as your NOR report is filled. So make sure that you fill in all 3 of those forms. As also was mentioned in the email, you have to have 70% of your incoming students' evaluation forms filled by the 10th of July. So we informed you about this voting rights task in the first email that was sent, just to ensure that you are aware of it and that you can already start contacting your incoming students and ask them to fill in their forms if they have not already filled it in. So this is for the previous exchange season, which was from March 2017 until, April 2017 until March 2018. And it is for your incoming students for that exchange season. I hope that we can all work together. So if you as a NORI ask your outgoing students to fill in the evaluation forms, and if everyone does that, then that will help us make sure that all the incoming students have filled in their evaluation forms as well. A lot of times it's a little bit simpler for the NORI of the sending NMO to get into contact with your students, or for the LORI to get into contact with your outgoing students. So on the 25th of June, we will send out a spreadsheet of what the statistics look like at that point, so you can get an overview of what your status is. We know that some students have had problems filling in the evaluation form. However, you have to make sure that you fill in the SCORE database problem report form in the NORI folder if you're having problems, because if we don't know that you're having problems, then we also can't account for it when we're doing the statistics. So if you are experiencing problems with the evaluation form, please do fill in the database problem report form so that James, the SCORE General Assistant, can help you out, or we can report any problems that we're having to the IT company so that they can take a look at and fix the bug. Then we also have the Explore pages, which includes 2/3 of the LC Explore pages that are SCORE active that need to be updated. Make sure that you do work together with SCOPE on this, because we share the Explore pages with them. And actually at the local level, only the Leo accounts have access to the LC Explore pages and not the LORI accounts. They will need to work together. You could start updating those from yesterday, the 10th of June as well. And the deadline for that will be on the 16th of July. This term, you all again will need to have your NMO president sign and stamp the the Explore pages contract which states that you do not use any copyrighted images or text in your Explore page. And more information about that will be sent on the 15th of July. And we will also send that to the NMO server so that your NMO president is aware of it as well. Then two more voting rights tasks that will happen a little bit later. On the 1st of July, you can start updating your exchange conditions and also update your NORI personal contact information. The exchange conditions are very important that they're up to date because, as you know, you will be signing contracts for the next exchange season, 2019 to 2020, unbelievably. So whatever exchange seasons that you have whatever exchange conditions that you have at that point will be the ones that are valid for the contract that you sign at the August meeting in Montreal. So a little bit more information about that will also come closer to the start of updating those. And then we have the NORI personal contact information. Also very important that the information is always up to date, but especially important before we are signing contracts at the August meeting, which is why you will need to update your contact information between the 1st of July and the 20th of July. So the reason that we have an open date and then a deadline is that when we check in the database about whether or not a task has been completed, the date that we see for when something was updated has to be between the open and the deadline. So for example, if you were to update your personal contact information today, that would be the 11th of June, which is before the opening time, and we would not be able to count that. So when you do update your exchange conditions, for example, or your NORI personal contact information, it must be between the 1st of July to the 20th of July. And this will be emphasized again when we send out more emails about these tasks. If you have any questions about any of the voting rights tasks, please do always contact your SCORE RA. They're very happy to help you. We know that it can be a little bit confusing sometimes, especially with all the different dates and deadlines and all the different tasks. So do make sure that you're asked if you have any questions about those.
And now I'll talk to you about the poster fair. It will take place during day 2 of the GA. This year it's going to be only a poster fair, so it's not an exchange fair and you're hanging a poster during the exchange fair. It's only about the poster, so make sure and take the effort to work on your poster and make sure to bring it after making it to the GA. And also make sure to use the template that we already provided to you. And by the way, it is the same as the March meeting one, so you can use the March meeting one unless you want to do something to it. Also, bear in mind that it will be used for last-minute promotions for your NMO, because while working on signing contracts with the other NMOs, you should be working on this before coming to the AM and finalizing it in the AM. So make sure to include all the info that you will need to promote for your NMO and to attract other NMOs to sign contracts with. It's very important to highlight again that you must use the template that we provided, and there is no need to bring any other promotional materials other than the poster. And also bear in mind that you will not be provided a table to put any of your promotional materials. You will only be allowed to hang your poster. And that's it.
Okay, great. So now for the part of how to sign contracts and about the contracts fair, I'm just going to give you some quick ideas, or especially what you need in order to sign contracts at this contract fair upcoming. First and foremost, of course, you should be a SCORE active NMO. It is recommended that you check the newest contract form that will be shared with you over the servers in a timely manner. So be sure to be acquainted with the contract form. What are the fields in it in order for you to fill them efficiently? Also, it would be great if you could fill them beforehand in order to save some time. Also, remember to check the LC capacity with your lorries about incomings, so you don't go overboard with your LC and overload them with incomings. A suggestion would also be that for your outgoings, you can send a survey out to the members of your NMO or your lorries in order to have an idea of who to sign contracts with. Also, you may contact your fellow Noris early, which is before the AM. You can start today, you can start next week, in order to start negotiating the amount of contracts that you can sign and if they would like to sign with you. Also, you have to participate in the contracts fair in order to sign your contracts, and approach your fellow Nori once the contracts fair has started in order to start signing. Also, a few things to remember is that there is no signing of contracts allowed before the contracts fair. Another thing that you should be very mindful about is of contract restrictions. Remember that if you have a certain amount of late CAs or super late CAs, there will be an imposed contract restriction based on the amount of contracts signed from the previous term or the previous season. So you cannot go over that amount, and that should be checked. Also, remember that there are certain limitations to the amount of contracts you can sign, specifically for unilateral contracts and 8-week exchanges contracts. The amount of unilateral contracts signed can't exceed 40% of the amount of bilateral contracts signed. As an example, if you have 10 bilateral contracts, the maximum amount of unilateral contracts you are allowed is 4. And as for 8-week exchanges, there is a regulation that states that maximum 10% of your total contracts should be 8-week exchanges. So this is also something to take into consideration, especially if you want to sign 8-week exchanges in this contracts fair. Now, some tips and tricks for the contracts fair is, first and foremost, arrive early in order to prepare your stand and prepare yourself and all the documents you need in order to sign your contracts. Remember that even though it may seem like you have a lot of time, that's not usually the case, because you have to find the Nori of the NMO that you're supposed to sign with, and you have to run over with all the documents and all the contracts and whatnot. So try to be mindful of the time you have and use it efficiently. Remember that only, like Atli said, only 2 people from SCORE will be allowed at the fair for the first 2 hours. And for the last hour, only every other extra that's attending the SCORE sessions will be able to attend. This is very, very important for us not to have an excessive amount of people inside the contracts fair, especially how chaotic it can get. Plan your booth before entering. This includes all the promotional material that you may want to bring. Also, let's try to remember that for the sake of sustainability, we will try to keep our amount of physical, paper, plastic, promotional material to a minimum. If you can bring something that's reusable, that would be great. If you can bring the minimum amount of paper as possible, that will also be great. The idea is that we are reducing waste and we're being environmentally sustainable. Also, try to grab attention to your fellow Nori on what are your educational activities, and that may be your unique selling point in order to sign contracts with them. So try to remember what are the strengths of your NMO, what are the great academic qualities that academic quality initiatives that you have in order to have that edge when signing a contract. And also try to remember and tell yourself all the time, why should I go to this country? Is there something to gain from it? Is it going to be academically, is it going to be good for you academically? And those are the questions that you should ask yourself, especially when you're signing contracts.
Okay, so moving on to tasks that you should complete before the August meeting. So of course, very important, as we mentioned, the voting rights task. Make sure that you have every single voting rights task completed before the deadline. Like we mentioned, you have to have your voting rights in order to apply for any scoring position, which means that, for example, if anyone from your NMO is considering to apply for the supervising board, then you will need to have voting rights in order to do that. You need it to sign contracts, and you also need it to vote during the scoring sessions. Prepared hard copy invitation letters if requested. So the August meeting as well as the March meeting, of course, is a very good opportunity for you to exchange any hard copies of invitation letters that any of your incoming students have requested. So do make sure that you have those prepared beforehand and ready to go, and you know who you're going to give it to, and make sure that you do, of course, give it to them during the August meeting at some point. Make sure that you have your poster that you need for the poster fair for day 2. This is one poster together with Scopy. So do make sure that you're working together with your Scopy counterpart in order to create the poster. Of course, if you already have a poster ready from March meeting, like Adley mentioned, you can bring that poster and save some paper as well, which is always a good thing. Prepare to sign contracts. So like Erwin mentioned, make sure that you know who you're going to sign contracts with, how many units you're going to sign, if there's any month restrictions, and what kind of contract it is. So if it's going to be a regular 4-week exchange, if it's going to be a gap exchange, if it's going to be an 8-week exchange, for example. So make sure you have all of that ready so that you're prepared. The contracts fair is a very hectic, but also incredibly fun part of the August meeting. So make sure that you're prepared so that you can enjoy it as well. Then the call for scoring regulation changes proposals was open this morning. So if you have any ideas for any regulation changes proposals, do make sure to submit them by the 1st of July. If you have an idea, but you're not quite sure how to formulate it, or if you would like some help, please do contact James, the Scory General Assistant, and he will be happy to help you out to make sure it goes into the right place, to make sure it's written correctly. If there's any other regulations that might be counteracting it, so make sure that you're changing all the necessary things that you will need to change. And of course, like I mentioned, apply for the Scory Supervising Board, and the deadline for this will be the 10th of July, and we will send the official call for Scory Supervising Board candidates on the 20th of June. At the August meeting, we're electing 3 new members, which is very exciting, so do stay tuned for that if you're interested in it. If you're already thinking about it, please do ask the Scory Supervising Board any questions that you have about their tasks. If you're interested, just so you can get an idea of what they do, just send an email to sp.scory@ifmc.org, and they will be happy to answer that. So a little bit more things that you will need to do in July specifically. In July, you will have the Scory Survival Kit, so do make sure that you read that carefully. In July, we will also share a number of Scory reports, which includes the end of term reports. I can't believe it's the end of term already. The end of term reports for the IT, different small working group reports. So for example, small working groups that have been working between March meeting and August meeting, or even the small working groups that have been working all term, they will have a report ready for you. So it will either be a final outcomes report if they're completed their work, or status reports if they're still working. So that you can check through these and ask any questions when they present their work on day 1 during the small working group presentations. Make sure that all your voting rights tasks are completed in July. Very important that the exchange conditions and the personal contact info, which are the 2 tasks that you have to do in July, as well as explore pages, of course. And then finalize any contract agreements that you have. Make sure that you have your hard copies of the contracts and also invitation letters, as was mentioned before. So we do recommend you to bring actual hard copies of all your contracts, preferably filled out, because chances are you will not be able to print them at the August meeting. So do make sure that you have them printed. You can also, for example, bring a few extra blank ones in case you suddenly have additional contracts, or you talk to someone during the poster fair and you would really like to sign a contract with them, for example. You can actually fill in the contract on the Word doc. So we will be sharing a Word document with you on around the 1st of July is when the updated contract form will be shared. So you can fill in sort of all of the things that are standard for every single one. So you will always be the outgoing NMO, for example. Then you can fill that in. So you can print that and then just fill in the things that are individual to each of the NMOs that you're signing contracts with. So one other thing that we wanted to highlight in July as well is that it's very important for you to participate in the SCORE regulation changes proposals discussions. So at this August meeting, we're going to have a number of very interesting proposals, including adoption of some reports and manuals. So it's very important that you're well prepared, you know what you're voting for, and that you participate actively in the discussion that will be held online in July before the meeting itself. So all of the proposals that are submitted by the 1st of July will be shared on the 8th of July, and James will organize a discussion online, either through Google Documents or through other formats. He will explain this very clearly in this email. And through the discussions, you can actually add amendments to the discussion, to the proposals, if the proposer accepts until the 22nd of July. So through this discussion process, we were already able to clear away a lot of amendments before we even get to the August meeting. Because during the August meeting itself, we only have 1.5 hours to vote. So we want to make sure that you know what you're voting for, that everyone's opinions have been heard. So by having discussions online before, we are able to limit the amount of time that we spend on voting during August meeting, because we want to make sure that when we are all there face to face, we're focusing on capacity building, we're focusing on problem solving, we're focusing on sharing and discussing important topics, and not spending too much time on voting, which I know can be a little bit boring sometimes, but it's still incredibly important for all the work that we do in SCORE. So do make sure that you participate in the discussions online beforehand so that you are well prepared.
So remember to bring, and don't ever forget to bring, your Nouri stamp, which you will need for signing the contracts with the other Nouris. It's very, very, very important to bring your Nouri stamp. It's also important to bring hard copies of the contracts and have them prepared and sorted in numbers and in months and in conditions that you already agreed on with the other Nouris. And also keep in mind that you have to bring 2 copies, one for you and one for the other Nouri. The survival kit and all the documents sent previously to the GA, you don't need to have those in hard copies. It's very enough and adequate to have them as a soft copy or a PDF on any of your devices. Just make sure to have them in handy so that you can always review them and answer all your questions from them. Also, don't forget the hard copy of the invitation letters if requested for the winter exchange students. Also, do not forget the poster that I talked about earlier, and the minimal materials that you'll need for the contracts fair. Of course, your SCORE T-shirt for the photo at the last day and for the sessions if you'd like, and the traditional hat from your country to wear during the contracts fair.
Good. So that brings us to the end of this webinar already. So are there any questions? If you have any questions, please just go ahead and write them in the chat. I see that we already have one question, which was, can the Leos edit the Explore pages? There were some Leos that thought it was not possible, but thank you, Gabriella, for clearing it up. The LC Explore pages can be edited through the Leo accounts, but the national one is only through the Neo accounts, so that you're aware of that. Of course, if you experience any problems with any of the Explore pages at any time, just make sure that you fill in the database problem report form so that James can take a look at it and help you out if you're experiencing any problems with it. I will give it a few seconds to see if we have any additional questions before we wrap up this webinar. So this was a nice short webinar, just the most important information that we have that you need to know in order to be prepared. We hope that you found it really helpful and useful, and that you will use the tips that Erwin gave in order to sign contracts, complete all your voting rights on task, and make sure that you have your poster and all of your contracts ready in time, as well as, of course, participate in the regulation proposal discussion. I cannot see any more questions, so I will assume that we are all set. So thank you all to everyone who tuned in and watched the webinar live. Of course, the webinar will be available on YouTube essentially indefinitely. So you can watch it again at any point. The link has also been shared on various communication channels, and we will send a follow-up email as well. If you have any questions at any point, please don't hesitate to contact your RA for any information that you need, any questions that you have, or anything that is unclear. And we hope that you have a good day or evening or night wherever you are. And thank you very much for joining us. So that's it for today. Have a good one, everyone.